Okay, so I think we are recording. So thank you everyone for joining again. I am excited to be here with you guys. And I'm looking forward to hear from you mostly. So our last town hall, God, it's now already over a month ago, I believe. It was late June. That we kind of came together, and I think a lot was shared and a lot was discussed. I also heard from a lot of you afterwards, and some of us had some one-on-one conversations, which I found tremendously helpful and I appreciate. So today I'm going to be taking a little bit more of a backseat and listening to all of you. But I want to just highlight, I had included these questions in the meeting invite really as a guide of some of the things that you might want to share with us. At the same time, I also want to highlight that there's really no wrong answers, right? So you might decide to answer 2 or 3 of these questions. You might decide to answer all. You might decide to share something different that you've experienced that you think will be helpful. So it is completely up to you there. I also want to highlight that I don't have all the answers. After the first call, I got some inquiries on, hey, what else can we do? And more so questions. And I think we discussed some of that during the first town hall. I don't have all the answers. I do recognize, though, that there is still so much work that needs to be done to give people from with all colors, creeds, sexual orientation, religion, a fair shake in life, right? I think that is one thing we can all agree on. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think some of the feedback or some of what I was hearing back from you was kind of the fear of not wanting to share or say something wrong. And I want to reassure you that this is an open conversation and we're looking forward to hearing from you. And there is no right or wrong in this conversation. So the 4 questions that I had included was, what have you learned over the last months? What progress have you made specifically towards being an inclusive and active anti-racist presence in the world in general? And then there might be some specific actions that you've taken. And then I'm curious to learn from you what you're committing to in the future. So as I mentioned before, you can answer all or a few or something different. I think that we're just curious to hear how your wheels have been turning since the first conversation that we have had. So with that, I think I had initially planned to share more of this at the end, but I think that it's suitable now. I think I've had some sideline conversations with Lisa and with Alicia as well, and I think I want to offer full transparency to you all. And there's one thing that I've been feeling over the past couple of weeks, and that's really kind of disappointment. Disappointment in our community as a whole, because I think that this forum was created to hopefully facilitate an open conversation, not by any means with the intention of, you're not answering to me, I think you're answering to the community. And this allows us to have an open dialogue and learn from each other. However, over the past weeks, I was faced with just a slew of excuses from different both white bloggers and white-owned brands. From, Friday is a really busy day for us because we send out most of our orders, or, oh, sorry, couldn't get childcare, or whatever the case may be. I got email after email after email after email filled with excuses. That's how I view them. So I know that that is very direct and very candid, but that is how I am feeling, because I think that, in our first town hall, we have Lisa, Alicia, Irene, and Valerie take the time to share really a piece of themselves. And they didn't have to do that, right? They didn't have to take that time and share so that you can learn. So for me, it is both puzzling and surprising to find that specifically for those brands and bloggers that are white and white owned, that an opportunity as this, which is really, in my opinion, it doesn't really get any easier, right? All you have to do is show up. And then to see that, you know, even that apparently is either too much to ask. I think that we are coming down from the height of the trend that we saw in June, right? And a lot of people have exercised their performative allyship. Thank you, Alicia, for that term. I've been using it a lot. And what I mean with performative allyship is, you know, we've seen specifically white-owned tall brands and white bloggers post, you know, oh, these are my favorite tall bloggers, or I love these brands that are owned by Black-owned women. And it was all within the time frame of, you know, kind of the 3-4 weeks that was in the height of this experience that we're having, I think, across the world. So I was very excited and encouraged to see it. But what I find very interesting is that now, fast forward a month, you know, you're not necessarily hearing those themes anymore, or are you seeing participation, right? I think that you all also recall who was on the first call or who was not on the first call at all, and now who has opted to join today. So all in all, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in our community as a whole that mere participation in a forum like this is not something that folks can fit into their schedule. And to me, I think that is just an extension of white privilege, because you have the privilege to not care. It's not something that keeps you up at night. It keeps me up at night. It really does. And you know, so if it's something that doesn't fit in the schedule, you and your life and your environment is not impacted by the decision that you make to either join or not join, the decision that you make to either do something or not do something. I find that something that we need to think about, and I hope that you all have your eyes and ears open and absorb that and take that in, right? And as I ask questions when I engage with other bloggers or brands around what they are doing, I hope that you're doing the same. And if you haven't, I would suggest that you start moving forward, right? The fact that we're looking at the screen right now and half of the faces on the screen are Black faces, that is, you know, telling. I think it's really telling. And I would not be Bree if I wouldn't call that out. I want to be, you know, offer 100% transparency. So that's how I'm feeling right now. Now, that does not mean that I'm going to stop leading this conversation. That does not mean that I'm going to be silent, because I need to see change. I want to see change for my future children. I want to see change for my fellow brothers and sisters. So I will continue carrying the torch, you know, despite participation or not. But I'm also going to continue calling out those that think that they have done their job by their performative allyship, either post or short stint of engagement. So with that, before we kind of get into hearing from you all, Lisa, again, I know that we talked about kind of having this conversation at the end, but I just felt it's heavy on my heart, and I really felt like I needed to get it out, and I hope that you all understand that, because I'm in the middle of my workday right now, right? Thank God I have a boss that gives me, you know, a lot of flexibility, and I said, I'm offline, I'll be back before 12 or, you know, before 1 p.m., whatever the case may be, and that's fine. I'm taking time out of my day Lisa's taking time out of her day. Lisa and I already had a conversation earlier this morning. Alicia and I had a conversation a couple days ago. So we're constantly engaged thinking how we can facilitate and help this community forward in this conversation. And all you have to do is show up. So if there are brands that are watching the playback of this session, I really hope let that sink in and think twice before you respond with excuses, because realistically, I work a full-time job and I run 2 businesses on the side and I'm still standing somehow. So if you tell me that you're busy, I'm not buying it. So I want to pause there for a moment and see if Lisa or Alicia have anything that they want to add to that. If so, please go ahead before we kind of hand over the mic.
Can everyone hear me before I start talking?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I want to thank everyone for coming today. The frustration that I talked to Bree about the other day is an overall frustration. I think everything is just like slowing down and people aren't acting. They're not putting in the action that they talked about or spoke about. And for me personally, I'm not speaking of anyone here, but the people that haven't showed up to a forum like this, or that posted a black square weeks ago and haven't done anything since, I would urge you to just check in with them and challenge them to watch this playback and, say that they can do X, Y, and Z, or I'm doing this, what are you doing? I would say that would be something that would be very productive after this, because you guys are here, you're getting the information, and unfortunately, and the feedback, right? And unfortunately, they should be here, but at the end of the day, they're not. So I just challenge you to, approach other tall bloggers that you work with, or other brands that you're friends with, and just say, like, what are you doing? Challenge them, because it's going to take the people that care to care even more and spread it around and go to people and challenge them to do things. Because unfortunately, if you look at all the people that said that they were going to do something, not all of them, but a large part, there's just a bunch of black squares in their timeline and nothing else. So I just wanted to reiterate that I really appreciate that you're still acting, that you're still coming to things like this. And I would just challenge you to challenge the people that aren't, because unfortunately, that's one of the only ways that we're going to continue to make any change. And then also, voting is so incredibly important when it comes to change. And that is, there's already a lot of elections that are happening right now or just happened, but in less than 100 days, we need to go to those polls and even before then and vote. And so I would urge you personally to start doing that as well. And there's ways to link both together. Like, you need to vote for X, Y, and Z. You need to vote because of this. This change needs to happen. Vote, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm personally going to start doing as well, is just getting people to vote, because it's so incredibly important when it comes to change. But I just wanted to reiterate, thank you for being here. And just continue to challenge people, continue to act, no matter if the rest of, your community or whatever isn't. It takes your voice. So that's what I would add.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yeah, I have some thoughts to add. Good morning, everybody. It's morning where I am in Chicago. Nice to see faces from the last you did. So I was going to say what Alicia just said pretty much was seeking the accountability amongst yourselves. And it made me think about, today I shot off some tweets that was just pretty much like, people love the idea of disrupt, let's disrupt. We're going to disrupt. But if you think about it in real life, people hate disruptions. So the people who head this up, we are the disruption, right? So you almost have to look at accountability seeking amongst yourself as be the disruption. Be the disruption. It's not gonna feel good to be like, hey, remember when we all said we were on this call and like, hey, where were you today? We do it all the time. Somebody misses a round of tennis. Hey, where were you? It also doesn't have to always be, and this is me just kind of like truly paring down what I do to the most simplest practical level. It doesn't always have to be, you said that you were going to hold yourself to the standards of Black tall bloggers. Where were you today? Make it normal of to, you know, you're emailing about something else, like, oh yeah, I'll check in on that. Oh, by the way, this cool thing I'm doing. So those are things that can help. Yes, daughter. We're at the point now where she has to be on my calls because I'm like, there's no other way this is going to work. Hold on real quick. So in order to make, and we're going to give you the floor, but in order to maximize the time that we're here for today, let's use this space as a brave space of, this is where we say, okay, but literally, what is the next step? I tried this. I was thinking about it, going about it this way. And you have to build strategies around how you're going to do this work and integrate it into your life, because now it's a new life. It's no longer business as usual. And I think that's the cool thing about us witnessing a pandemic within a pandemic. We now know what it feels like for it to be like, oh, it's not going back to being the same. Because the vibes that Black women specifically have is like, we're not going back to not mattering. So our lives are completely different. And so, you know, people sometimes think because something isn't happening to me, my life isn't that different. For allies, your life should never be the same too. It's a daily cross to bear. As sure as I walk out and I'm Black, you walk out and you're an ally, which means you're always learning, unlearning, reprogramming, repeat. Learning, unlearning, retraining, repeat. Learning, unlearning. So I would to give like strong, just personal action items out of what I'm just saying right now. Be the disruption. And oh, it was right there. What was it? Be the disruption. You have to, it's so close, y'all. Just rock with me for just 1 second. Oh, instead of putting the pressure on what can I learn today, start thinking, what can I unlearn today? What can I unlearn today? Be the disruption, and what can I unlearn today? And that will slowly start to, just like exercise, muscles don't grow overnight. It's going to be one of those things where you will slowly see the transition of you becoming more comfortable with being the disruption, because that's what that's catering to. Nothing is catering towards making you more comfortable. It's making you more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So be the disruption. What can I unlearn today?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, thank you. And just to echo what both Lisa and Alicia have said, you know, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day because this is a priority for you. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that should be contagious. So as you engage with others just in your life, and not even necessarily just within our, you know, little tall tribe, our niche community, I would say just throughout life, ask people these questions, and it doesn't have to be something necessarily that is loaded or accusatory. To Lisa's point, it could be as simple as, you're already having this engagement and just saying like, hey, missed you the other day, or whatever the case may be. I think that's going to be what slowly will change the trend that we've seen. And hopefully we'll be back on an upwards trend of just general engagement, just participation in the conversation. So with that, I don't want to put anyone on the spot here. I really just leave it to you on who has something to share and who wants to speak first. Not all at the same time. So I see Jen, Taylor, Kobe. There's a phone number that joined. I'm not sure who the 609 number is. I see a 609 and it ends with 66 as well. So if you can let us know who that is, that would be fantastic. And then I'm going to sit back here and see who wants to go first. I think I've done enough talking.
I can jump in here since I've kind of just been a spectator for the last couple calls. I don't know if there's any other males on the call. Is there, Bree?
I don't think so, unless I'm not sure who the 609 number is that joined, but no, I think you are the only gentleman. And Kobe, can you just introduce yourself and who you work for, just for the ladies that don't know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel really lucky to be here. So thank you for inviting us, Bree. My name is Kobe, and I am part of the operations team at American Tall. So we're a clothing brand. We produce product. Historically, it's been mainly for men. But we're changing now, and we're kind of exploring further on the women's side as well. But it's clothing for tall people. So what we like to say is if you're too tall for the mall, you can come to our website and find whatever you need. Historically, we've done very well on the men's side. The growth has been great. We're doing a lot of hiring. But we've realized that there's a great opportunity on the women's side of the business as well. So a focal point for us moving forward is to place more time and energy in that area of the business and kind of grow out that way. We have, just to be honest, like when you look at our management team from an outsider's perspective, we're a group of white males. And this is something that we are very well aware of, and we're working to change and try and improve. So part of my job, I'm responsible for all of our hiring and recruitment. So I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. That's why I've kind of been spectating and being quiet, but I'm just trying to collect as much information as I can so that moving forward, we could implement new strategies to make sure that we're creating an inclusive and diverse work environment. It actually just so happens that in the last few weeks, since our last call that we had, we've interviewed a few candidates who have actually called us out point blank and said, what are you guys doing to create a diverse work environment across all levels of the business? So it really forced us to try and come up with a strategy and make sure that, there's a conscious effort here to make sure that the hiring we do is completely unbiased. We like to hire people based on merit and value that we think they could add. So there's definitely a balance there, and I'm just trying to learn and determine what the best way to go about it is going forward. when it comes to recruitment strategy and making sure that, again, we're unbiased. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to share or include on that, but it's definitely a priority for us to make sure that we are being inclusive in our recruitment and growing our business. So,
hi, Kobe, everybody. It's really nice to meet you. My name is Jennifer Rust, and I work for Alloy Apparel. And first of all, I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. And I feel as though I'm in a very similar situation as Kobe, as far as really here to learn and listen and make sure that there are more forums such as this, so that it really forces us to tackle this head on and make sure that we're all making a difference. And we believe as a brand, Alloy Tall Apparel, that we're very much inclusive with in terms of a representation on our site of different races, and we also internally as an organization at all levels have a very diverse workforce. But we want to make sure that we continue to improve that. To Kobe's point, we need to listen and learn and make sure we're hiring people of merit, but we're making sure that we're bringing on a nice balance as far as a diverse set of employees. Right now, due to COVID, we're in somewhat of a hiring freeze, but definitely going forward, these types of community meetings is going to help us get better as a brand. So I just want to, again, thank you so much for bringing us together, Bree. It's a really awesome forum, and I'm really here to learn.
Okay. And then, Lisa, I know that you're taking notes and you had some comments, and maybe you want to pause. And I don't know if Lisa, Alicia, or anyone has questions for Kobe or for Jen, or anything to add or to share in addition to what they just shared with us.
I would say, for me personally, from personal experience and from also friends, right, that have given me their personal experiences, making your workforce more diverse is amazing, and it's a great step. And I think, there are some people that aren't even looking at that, so I appreciate that step. But when you have people of color, Black people on your staff, make sure that they also have the power of their position. A lot of times, and I'm not saying that you guys are doing this at all, I'm giving you some, I guess, some education on what happens after people of color and Black people are hired sometimes, is that they're there just for the numbers, and they're often overlooked, not given any power to make decisions, not able to even do their jobs, because a lot of times tools are taken away from them to be able to do them. And so I would just say, consult with somebody to make sure that that doesn't happen after people of color are hired within your businesses, because that's very damaging, obviously. And it also just perpetuates racism even more, because from the outward looking in, you're thinking, oh, they're doing great, but in actuality, it's the opposite. So I would just say with that, like, really focus on what happens after you hire as well. Again, I'm not saying that that's something that you are going to try to do or want to do, but it's just something you need to be aware of, because it happens time and time again. And I can attest to that from personal experience.
Alicia, if you want to leave the tall world and come over to the diversity and inclusion world, you are right on point. So yes, what happens after? And I want to give another point, which is what you bring them into, which means seeing where you're at now. When we get clients that are focused on talent retention or talent recruitment, our first question is we have to get real and see why they're leaving or why they're not coming. And you have to, before you bring on people, the people there may need to go through some type of whiteness training, some type of identity training, social justice training, and which are things I all do, by the way. Caveat, pause. This is one of those moments in my life where I'm leaning on my confidence side. So this is something I wouldn't typically say in a forum like this, but one of these brands need to sponsor Bree for this forum in the form of dollars, because this education is falling into the consulting realm, and we charge tens of thousands upwards to hundreds of thousands of dollars for this information. So learning in this sense should not be free, and that's because it will affect your bottom line in a positive way. So consider where your dollars are going. When you make any structural change in an organization, you look at the money and see how much money you can put towards and invest in that. And it's these types of things that you'll be investing in. Because once I tell you to wait before you bring people, get your whiteness stuff together, get your company culture together first, then give you the hiring practices, the interview strategies, the processes, the unbiased checklist that is an actual checklist you can have with you in an interview to ensure that you're not being biased. Your whole company has dramatically changed for the better, and the CEO is very happy. And this is a part of the uncomfortable thing of Black women doing the work for free that must stop. So I will work with Bree to get this sponsored. If you love continuing to come to this forum, I can share the checklist with you, but that's something that I won't do because I have people that pay a lot of money for it. So Kobe, yes. So what I would ask is, if you have, when you're coming up with a strategy, who's helping y'all come up with that strategy? Are you hiring out for it, or are you trying to come up with a strategy internal? Because you may need some outside help to come up with the hiring practices for your internal hiring practices for your internal process, and then that's to ensure that you just get more voices and perspectives in the room to keep y'all out of blind spots, because any homogenous group is going to have blind spots. If I have an organization with just all Black women, we're going to have blind spots. So think that, and I wrote down for you checklist, unbiased checklist, because I think that's something I empower you to follow up on with somebody, is who can I find to help me set up this hiring practices strategy? Who's looking at our company culture before we bring people in? And in this strategic plan, how are we including them after we bring them in? For Jen, I wrote down talent retention. This is another educational piece, and this is across industries. The talent pipeline is soiled because of systemic racism. So when it comes to finding the qualified people, that's where things get tricky, because the qualified people have access to certain things that only white people can get. So, for example, I'm the creative director and I design for Fortune 500 companies, and I don't have a degree in graphic design. But if I applied to work at any of the companies I set the creative strategy for, they wouldn't hire me. And I think that's just so funny. So I empower you, Jen, to find what are the resources in your industry that can show where the flaws are in the talent pipeline. Because there are people of color, people of various identities who didn't get this degree, but they beast at something else, or they have experience somewhere else. And you have to find those pools and you'll come to find that these are things you're like, wow, we might have to build this because it doesn't exist. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I did want to make sure I hit those 2 points of like practical.
You know, if I may just say, Lisa, I think, you know, one thing that you, and again, this is why I'm here, is we need to make sure that, you know, we have women of color at all levels of our organization. But one thing you've just mentioned is we need to make sure they're heard. And so for me, if there's one key takeaway here, it's huge. So I want to, and that's why I'm here. I get kind of misty about it, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'll dive into Alicia and Lisa, like both really, really good points. So I do definitely appreciate it. Like where we're coming from, the business is really only 4 years old. So we've grown very quickly. And what comes with that is a lot of responsibility on the management side to make sure that we're ticking a lot of these boxes. And it's very easy to look past certain things and forget about certain things that are actually integral and really, really important. So I think both of you made some really good points. And at the end of the day, like, I think a lot of this just requires a bit of mindfulness and really thinking things through. Definitely getting an outsider's perspective and seeking some guidance that way. I think that could add huge value. Something we're in the process of doing at the moment is actually hiring an HR manager or HR generalist. We haven't decided on the title, but as we go through this process, we've probably met 10 people so far, and we're so back and forth, the management team is in determining what the primary focus of this person is going to be. But there's no doubt in my mind that part of it needs to be making sure that our priority is creating that inclusive and diverse workplace, and taking that into consideration across the board, recruitment, and then through that into onboarding and just employee retention and making sure they're heard. So I really do appreciate both those points, because these are things that we need to be considering. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And if I can add to that as well, as it comes to just my personal experience in corporate America, I think 2 things. I think one, although we want to make absolutely sure that folks are heard, I do not necessarily think it is the right approach to, for example, if you have an enterprise with 20 employees and you have 2 Black employees, to tag them as the end all be all and answer to everything. Right, which we sometimes see happen in enterprises as well, right? So employ an expert, to Lisa's point, and consider consulting with an entity that specializes in this area, right? I have experienced that personally, where I was being asked for certain answers in the context of corporate America and the company I worked for at the time, and I said, well, I'm not a diversity and inclusion expert, but I can give you my opinion. So I think that, you know, that can be experienced as sometimes sort of unnecessary pressure on those individuals. But yes, we want to absolutely make sure that they're heard, but we do also want to make sure that they don't end up with responsibilities that they did not necessarily ask for in the journey of the company learning and trying to move forward. I just wanted to share that. And secondly, to Alicia's point, making sure that the individuals that you hire have their full power, right? So that is something I think it's something that needs to be addressed continuously. And I'll give you a specific example that I experienced in the past. Is hired into a leadership position. In that leadership position, I think I had 8 direct reports at the time, and a really unhealthy habit that my boss had at the time is he would delegate tasks and duties to them directly versus coming to me and allowing me to manage my team, right? So he would completely bypass me, and I would find from my direct reports that they had been tasked with XYZ projects. As you can imagine, that's definitely an awkward conversation to be having, that you need to hear from your own direct reports what duties they have been given by your superior. So that's a specific example that came to mind immediately as Alicia shared, make sure that they have their full power. So any sort of observations around that, I think, is something that we can address as they occur, and I think are very important to address as they occur. So Isabel, thank you for joining. And I think, Taylor, I know you were about to kind of jump in before you pivoted, but we'd love to hear from you. And if you can just introduce yourself as well, it'd be great.
Sure. Thank you again, Bree, for hosting these. And, you know, it's been great to connect further over them. And yeah, anyway, thank you for your time to Alicia and Lisa. I know that, yeah, you've given a lot of time and thought to communicating your stories and helping people, and that deserves real attention. So thank you for that. My name's Taylor, and I launched my own clothing brand for tall women last summer. And before that, I had been working in another apparel brand, so running production and behind the scenes. So, you know, I was like nervous to go first, like open the floor, but I'm such a behind the scenes person. I'm getting used to presenting and, you know, that kind of thing. So, but, you know, so because I figured I was going to be nervous, I was like, well, I took some time to really like write some things out of what's been going on and what I've been working to do in the last few weeks. So I will share some of those. And, you know, first and foremost, basically, you know, I absolutely need to be devoting more time and effort to being an anti-racist, and, you know, consistently checking my privilege and like authentically showing up, like you said. I think, you know, it's kind of easy for people to go about their days, and that's just not like an excuse. So, so there's that. And then I've also just been really focusing on like what's my sphere of influence. You know, I'm not just a brand owner, but I'm like an individual and an avid reader and podcast listener, and you know, a small business shopper and a restaurant goer. And, you know, those are the like personal things that, you know, have already come into consideration. How can I support more people of color and make sure that I'm adding diversity into those, because I know they'll affect me as a business owner. And then, you know, of course, like community member, family member, like there's lots of work to do in all spheres of our lives. Yeah. So, but then like specific action steps, I'm really thankful that getting started, you know, being like a solopreneur with my husband, we needed a lot of help from other people, and I've been like conscious and will continue to be conscious of bringing diversity into those contractor positions. And then hopefully I'll be at the place that Kobe and Jen are at some point, and be able to be thinking about the bigger like HR strategies for our company. And then another really important area to us is that we work with, I design in handmade products and handmade fabrics, and particularly from India. And it's been really important to me that I worked with a consultant as we were launching and continue to launch on, you know, creating inclusive narratives and dealing with conversations with other businesses in that production space, fair trade and ethical conversations around colonialism and white saviorism. Those kinds of languages are really prevalent in that kind of fashion space. So how can I as well make sure that's something that I'm aware of in our own branding, but also, you know, encourage other businesses who really do need to participate in that as well. So that's like an ongoing thing, definitely. So, you know, also to that end, as a garment garment designer and manufacturer and production person, I make sure that we don't use exploitive labor in the construction of our garments. And for the majority of our fabrics, we're also clear that there's not exploitive labor. A portion of them we source from like high quality local markets, and we do need to learn more about the origins of those fabrics and the labor involved there. Let's see. Then this was a new area for me, you know, thinking about marketing, and I list them because I feel like they're really small steps that just like hadn't even occurred to me. But honestly, listening to the first town hall and hearing about like just the behavior with influencers and discrimination there and all the inequities happening. I'm new to engaging with influencers, and I felt a place I could start was just, you know, hard line determine what's a uniform package that I could offer to influencers as I start engaging with them, so that is, you know, not up for question, and like it's just what our business can afford and what everyone's going to get offered, you know, and that either, you know, will work for people or not. But it sounded like so much discrimination came out of, you know, people getting offered different amounts and, you know, different negotiations happening and things like that. So that was something I'd never even considered before. And, you know, I want to continue to engage with other collaborative relationships with different brands. And we have a small business Saturday like post series, and just making sure that, you know, I'm cognizant at all levels of promoting like a diversity of collaborations, you know, with influencers, other companies, designers, things like that. Yeah, I feel like I'm just listing a bunch of things, but anyway,
you put some thought to this, and I can appreciate you being as detailed as you're being. So please don't apologize. I think we're all kind of leaning in to.
Yeah. And then lastly, I'll say like to design and fit, you know, I can make sure that I'm really inclusive of like the fit models and measurement sets that I'm working with, and the different lifestyles, you know, that I want to design for. And I can't take credit for all of these too. I did like attend some really helpful webinars. Erica Corday led, she, you know, led on how to be a better brand ally, be a better ally as a fashion brand. And also Rachel Rogers from Hello 7, like reimagining small business, you know, and I mentioned this Manpreet Kalra, who I've worked with for quite a while now. I mean, these are all things, you know, that help. They were the inspiration to help listening to these things. So, and considering them in my own business. So definitely can't take credit for all of them. But so I would also say like the imperative to listen to other people is what made, you know, me reflect on all of those things. So again, thank you for providing another platform for that. Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah, I guess that's where we're going, and I'd love your feedback. That's the other thing too. I just thought I would present on those things so that I could hear people's thoughts, you know.
Taylor, thank you so much for doing all of that. But also I think there's value in sharing what you're doing with other people, because it can, like when we were talking about the bloggers that aren't here, like sharing with them what you're doing could spark something within them, or just saying like, hey, I'm doing the work, are you doing it? And without even like screaming it, right? Showing. And then also I just want to tell you, nothing is too small. So when you said that there was something that you're doing was small. No, it's not. Every move that you're making is powerful, and just keep doing it in action. And, thank you.
I was definitely disappointed. Like, I invited some people and, to see who hasn't showed up. So I can totally hear that and apologize that that's been your experience for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate your apology, but
You're like, just do it.
Go back at them and say, hey, didn't see you this morning. I'm disappointed. Express that to them, because like I said at the beginning, it's going to take, to be quite frank, it will take white people to call out white people to initiate a lot of this change that needs to be made, because we've been screaming it from the mountaintops for our entire, like for years and years and years. And so it takes that action. So I appreciate you inviting people, and I will appreciate you calling them out as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lisa speaking to that too was really helpful, for sure. So thanks.
And I think it is the little things that everyone does that will move the needle. So don't underestimate kind of the power of your own action, and of your own challenging of others as well. I think that it is those little things that will make a difference. I think that folks are accustomed to the women of color speaking out and calling brands out and asking for questions and facilitating and educating. But I think that needs to happen more so amongst yourselves as well. And I think that is where we're going to see true change, because I think it's probably to be expected that I would turn around and say, hey, where were you? Right. But I think they're going to expect that from me. But I think it will perhaps be perceived differently coming from you, Taylor, or from Jen, or from Kobe. I think that holding each other accountable in that context and continuing to do so inside of the context of a forum like this, or outside and just in your day-to-day life, is going to be where we will see change and the needle move forward. And before we move on, I know that Isabel joined as well, but Lisa, was there anything that you wanted to also add?
Just on the accountability front, that's the response that I loved. That was the answering of, that was the accountability. You held yourself accountable. And I didn't have any next steps for you, because you're already naturally building in lifestyle changes that are going to impact the trajectory of your growth as an ally, as well as your business. Your business is going to bloom because you're also in a prime position, and you're starting out the gate with these things in mind, and you're putting systems and structures in place that challenge the status quo, and you're making it your lifestyle as well, which is also important. So you're not turning it off. And once you start getting your soap from a Black-owned company, you're probably never going to stop. So keep going. Keep it.
Thank you. Thanks.
And specifically, one other thing that comes to mind, Taylor, you spoke a lot about doing your research and understanding where you're sourcing from. And obviously being in the world, for all of you, being in the world of fashion and retail, I think that is absolutely critical. And I wish Valerie was here, but she's leading a board meeting, so she gets a pass. But Valerie speaks a lot around fast fashion and companies not truly understanding how their garments are being created, where they're being created, and what labor is being used for it. So that is something I think absolutely paramount, specifically for the folks on the phone or on here today, because you are in retail, you have the power to make sourcing decisions of where you get your fabrics from, or where your garments are being developed, or where your shoes are being produced, and making sure that you understand what the environment is like, right? Because you can do all this work within your own company and making sure that you're doing the right thing and you're having an active conversation. But then if you're funding another third-party company that is creating your garments, that is practicing child labor, or whatever the case may be, and you don't have any insight to that because you, one, maybe have not asked the question, or two, was so blinded by the competitive cost that they offer that you kind of just sign on the dotted line. I think then you're still adding to this systematic problem, right? And your dollars are contributing to keeping that systematic problem going. So thank you, Taylor, for calling out just the production piece, because I think that that's critical for everyone that's on.
I also wanted to say too, like, I could be more, I mean, I love garment production. Like, I've been traveling to visit, like, I love the mechanics of making garments. And like, if anyone, I could be a better aid to folks who like want to try to transition to, manufacturers in that way. So I'm figuring that out, but like kind of how to spread the word that if anyone wants a conversation about manufacturing, then I'm game for that. So. That's
fantastic. Thank you, Taylor, for bringing that up. So I said I was going to try and keep it to an hour, and I'm clearly failing. But I want to make sure that we give Shireen and Isabel an opportunity to speak as well. So Shireen.
Sorry, I don't want to be rude and jump the queue. Isabel did say she had something to say first. Or I'm sorry, the woman from TJL. Is that
Either
Isabel?
way.
I will take that silence as a go ahead.
Yeah.
So,
no,
hi,
I
guys.
did.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, you're there. You're there. Okay.
No, I definitely did. Sorry, I was trying to get to my phone, because I wrote some notes down, and me personally, I because I'm a fashion designer and because I'm a Black fashion designer, I really felt it important that I had some presence here, on behalf of fashion designers, people who sew and make and do all of that. So I really wanted to just make sure I got up today because I live in Honolulu, so it's pretty early. But so first of all, my name is Tiffany Jones Lewis, and yeah, I live in Honolulu. I'm a fashion designer for TJL Collection. It's my brand. And so on my day job, I work in HR. I work for the Marine Corps. And to be completely transparent, I can truly say that I have two different personas when it comes to my brand and how I am at work. I feel like at work in corporate or whatever, it's kind of like I'm in the position and I own that because like you're paying me and this is my job, this is what I do. It's like a confidence that comes with being in a certain position. But as a brand, as a business owner, and I've been in business 6 years now, as a business owner, everything is driven by customers, right? So it's like you kind of, or me personally, I can only speak for myself. It's a sense of anxiety sometimes, especially in the tall community, because before I started doing fashion design, I had a boutique, and I think as a Black woman, most of my customers were Black. They just came to me, or whatever. But now that I have a niche in tall, it's like a very, very diverse community, right? So it's like it gives me anxiety sometimes. And I think I mentioned this last time to Alicia about like how to present myself and still keep my business funded, right? Like the anxiety comes from my like customers accepting my brand and wanting to buy from my brand and feeling like I have to be something to make other people want to like buy into me, right? Black and white, personally. That's how I feel about it. And some transparency about my brand. So I do most of my patterns. I sew myself too, but I also hire all black seamstresses. They're all mostly African women. And we get all of our fabrics from Nigeria. And I purposely did that as a Black woman to make sure that I was okay, I will. I'll type it in here. But I purposely did that as a Black woman to make sure that I had Black people for my brand and that I was giving my money to Black seamstresses to help me with my brand. Now, Bree, when I was like reading your email, at first I was kind of like a little like, well, I don't know what I can say or what I can do and different things like that. But to be honest, I think one of the things that I can personally take accountability for is to be more open-minded too. I think sometimes as Black people, and I'm a Southern girl, and plus I'm a military girl, so please don't take like my bluntness as like I can just only be as straightforward as I can be. But I think sometimes as Black people, we kind of like put a cover on us, and we feel like, well, I'm not going to be accepted anyway. So it's kind of like you just kind of turn away from even trying to be close with allies or even get allies, right? And sometimes I'm shocked when like I look at some sales or some people who tagged me or whatever, and I'm like, oh, she does like my stuff, right? She likes my stuff and she's not a Black woman. That shocks me sometimes. But so I can say, yes, you can. So but what I can say is that me personally, I have to open myself up too as a Black woman and understand that everybody's not out to like be against me as a Black person. It's hard sometimes, and that's the truth, because the world, like you reading comments and you're seeing so much stuff, you kind of just get hard about it, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna black that out, and I'm just gonna accept who accepts me, right? And then you just don't even want to have the conversations, or you don't even want to talk to other people or whatever. So one of the things I can do is try to be a little bit more open-minded myself as a Black person, and try to understand that everyone's not out to get me and that there are allies out there. I just have to, be more open-minded to that. So there's something that I can do. But for TJL Collection as a brand, one of the things I want to do going forward is, of course, diversify models. I live in Honolulu, so it's kind of hard here because it's like a lot of petite people in Honolulu. So it's kind of hard, but I will be in Dallas at the end of the year. So I want to make sure that I have diverse models for my brand alone. That's something that I'm going to work to do, that is all colors and shades and shapes and sizes for my brand. I'm personally taking accountability for that. It's just going to take some time. But I'm open to any feedback or whatever. That I just wanted to say that from a Black fashion designer and a Black brand who does tall. So
That's incredible, Tiffany. And I think you said something quite key just now in, I think that, and I'll keep it with myself as a Black woman, I absolutely can relate to what you just said in terms of sometimes getting biased. And I think maybe not being as open sometimes for fear of disappointment, or not being as open for fear of not being accepted. So maybe sometimes staying in a certain realm or a certain circle because that's where comfort is. And so that is, as you were saying that, I was like, ding, ding, ding. That's very true. And I think that that's a tendency that I personally sometimes have as well. And I have to make a conscious effort to open up my mind and my circle, to be more open and to listen to other perspectives, ideas, from folks with different backgrounds and different shades as well. That was one of the main reasons why I ended up transitioning the Tall Society from just being the Bree show to having contributors that have different shapes, sizes, heights, and colors. So that's fantastic. And I know if you can drop your email address in the chat box as well, Tiffany, I know that Lisa would love to connect with you. I'm seeing here. And for anyone that wants to connect with you, if you can drop it in there, that'd be great. And then Isabel, you wanted to say something to Tiffany as well?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I ordered from you last week, I think, and it arrived yesterday. I tried it on, and I think your pieces are absolutely awesome. Like, just the way you, like, design is, I think, for a really strong woman. Like, it's very very clean cuts, very confident colors. So I think there, the person that is your customer should have the confidence and like see that in the clothing. I think it's
Thank
very
you.
straightforward. So when I saw your page, I was like, I love this. I'm gonna like order, and I already shared it with some of my friends that are in the corporate world and are tall and are always looking for those type of pieces. So I think it's awesome. I really, really like your brand.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Good, good. Miss Shireen, are you ready?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shireen. I'm co-founder of Koi Shoes. I started it just over 2 years ago with my business partner, Charlotte, who can be on the call. I'm in London. She's now in New York, but we're keeping the train going. I'll try and keep it short and sweet and be mindful of everyone's time. But I think when I read your questions, and it's since June or maybe before then, I think I've been really super conscious of what does activism look like to me personally, first and foremost. And it's not a question that I had asked myself before. I'm not necessarily the most like a vocal person. I wasn't necessarily someone who would go to rallies and things of that sort, but I had to figure out what works for me. What can I do with the resources that I have, with the personality, that I have and who I am, what makes sense for me. So I started off first by, Lisa pointed it out earlier on in the discussion, like unlearning, because we are also taught anti-Blackness. I am a Black woman. I am also taught to not love myself and not to love people who look like me. And how does that manifest and what does that look like? So, I've been trying to read more books and listening to a lot of Black women content creators, like your For Harriets and your Kalechi Okafors of the world, like people who talk about anti-racist themes and womanist themes as well, has been really important to me. But some of the small steps that I have been able to make in this time is definitely supporting Black businesses more actively. Like, for example, I like to read. Like, I could very easily look at all of the Black bookstores in London. There's only 3 or 4 for the book that I want to read first before I decide to go to Amazon and just get it on Prime, because it's the easy route, right? Like, supporting Black business isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be cheaper. That's just is what it is. But that's going to be important to me now. That's a priority to me now. And that's what that's going to look like. But then also thinking about how do we incorporate this, my business partner and I, within our brand. I think we were a bit iffy about it before, like how quote unquote political do we want to get, but the political is personal. Like, I really take that quote to heart, and we're bootstrapping our brand completely ourselves. We're in that phase where, like, we own this. We have ownership over what this looks like. Like, we can do whatever we want it to do. And as much as we're a reflection, that Koi is a reflection of us and who we are, we're a reflection of it. And it works both ways. So I think we're going to be definitely more just vocal in future, both on our own personal pages, but also through our brand, because that's important to the both of us. So, for example, like this week, that whole challenge accepted thing was going on, and we both kind of paused and were like, this seems important, but let's dig a little bit under the surface as to what's actually going on, because we're both tagged, and I think it's important for the both of us to be more conscious about digging under the surface a little bit and not being performative, and actually understand the root of things and what the causes and why we're supporting it, and what are we supporting by doing those things. And I think that's an example that's quite adjacent to what's been going on with Black Lives Matter and the Black Squares, for example. So yeah, another thing we're doing is just behind the scenes, like who we hire. As 2 tall Black women, 2 plus size Black women, we already knew we wanted our imagery to be inclusive and diverse, not only like obviously taller women, but plus size women, thinner women, etc. But it's also important behind the scenes who we hire. And if we say we're going to support women, let's get women photographers, let's get women designers to do our creative, etc. I'm going to do a little Instagram shoot in a few weeks, and a family friend, one of his daughters, she's only 17, but her aspiration is to be a photographer and a set designer. And I've said, you can come and work for me and I will pay you to have this experience, because it's important for me to support Black women. It is important for me to see you realize your dreams and have that experience, and in an encouraging environment. So let's do that. And I'd love to be doing more of that. But we can only do what we can, because everything is coming out of my pocket and times are hard. But yeah, just in general, like just being more conscious. And like Taylor mentioned, actually, as we're looking for new manufacturers currently to start producing some new styles, definitely that point of making sure that they're ethical manufacturers and they're not using child labor and such is another point that I'll definitely take from this conversation. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Shireen. And again, another great point there, similar to what Taylor said earlier. And we spoke about this a little bit in the first town hall. I don't think there's a right or wrong in participation. I think that mindfulness is the most important thing. And we all have very different personalities, and there are very different things that we're comfortable with. And as a result, we have different approaches to things. And I think all of that, is great. So we all play a little bit of a different role, but as long as we're engaged, I think that's the most important thing moving forward, right? And I think I said last time, one of my best friends, he's been going to all of the protests, and he's the one with the megaphone, and then his voice is gone for the next couple of weeks. And, that is the role that he leans into and is so comfortable in. And that's probably not necessarily what I would do. And I think that that's okay, because we all kind of have different ways that we're trying to be a part of positive change, right? And I hate to rush people, but I want to make sure that everyone can speak. And then I have my boss texting me. Isabel, I would love for you to have an opportunity to speak as well. And then if there's any final thoughts from anyone after that, we'd love for you to hear from you as well.
Yeah. I'll try to be quick. So for me, just a quick introduction. My brand is Tall and Easy, and I really just founded it end of last year. And it's for me more of a, right now, I don't like to call it a project, but it's something I do on the side besides my 9 to 5. So I don't have the capacity yet to really hire anyone or even to outsource anything. I mainly rely on my friends at this point to help me take pictures, model for me, and help me with these things. And so that's where I'm at from a brand perspective. But thinking through the topic, I kind of broke it down into the 3 areas that I can think of, which is my personal approach, my 9 to 5 job, and then my brand. So on a personal level, for me, I grew up in Europe, in Germany, and I moved to the States 6 years ago. So I think there's definitely a difference that I could see between what we are experiencing in school and growing up versus what is happening here, even I think in different states in the US. So for me personally, it's really important to read and learn and have discussions with friends. So a thing I've been doing a lot is asking my friends, how did you learn about slavery in school? When did you learn about it? How did you learn about it? And just to understand, maybe not where they're coming from, but how they grew up and how they went about it in school. And then also another thing, of course, that I can do personally and that I have started doing is diversify my feed, especially in the tall community, find more tall brands, tall bloggers that are Black, and that I could follow and diversify my own, what I'm looking at every day, and then also support with my money. That's something that I already started doing around the COVID time in general, to really support especially more small businesses and be more intentional of where I buy and who I'm buying from. And then on the corporate side, I work in the automotive industry. So basically all of our management is old white men. My dad's in the same industry, and I was on the phone with him when the first wave happened and everyone's kind of like sending out these email notifications, and my dad was on the phone with me reading a notification that his company sent out as a statement, talking about how inclusive they are and how they're not supporting racism. And I asked my dad then, I said, how does your management look like? And he's like, you don't want to know, because all these companies in our space really look the same. It's all literally all white men. And then now I recently changed jobs, so I'm officially Monday I'm going to start, and for the first time I'm going to be in a position where I can hire people. So for now I'm going to join a team with like 20 direct reports, or 20 people, 5 direct reports, but I'll be able to, you know, make a difference and be more intentional about what we want the company and the team to look like. And I'm fortunate that the new plant manager there seems to be pretty open, and he seems to drive that culture as well. So I'm kind of excited to see if we can change, at least in our plant, the look of management and leadership a little bit. What else did I write down? And yeah, we started some discussion around, you know, like when we post a job description, I noticed I work in the engineering space, so a lot of times they say white men are really confident to apply to a job even if they don't meet any of the criteria. They're like, yep, I can totally do this. And is there a way to write job descriptions in a different way so that people actually feel more drawn to applying, even though they don't meet everything? But you want to attract, who do you want to attract for the job? Do you want to attract these white men that you already have plenty of, or do you want to attract more women? And how do you do that? Do you want to attract more women of color? Can you word the job descriptions differently to be more draw those people in? So that's a discussion I had with our plant manager yesterday. So we'll see if it takes fruit and how far we can take it. From a brand perspective, I was a little bit upset with myself when I reflected on, you know, my feed, because right now it's a lot of me, because it's easier for me to go out with a tripod and take pictures, or have a friend come over and take pictures. But when I started Tall and Easy, the one person that was helping me most, especially with creative things, is actually one of my tall Black friends, but she's not very visible in the feed or in, you know, the day-to-day. And she just had a baby, so she has a lot going on right now, and it's kind of hard for me to break into her time. But I talked to her, and she is definitely open to help me more in the future, and also be more willing to be more present in like pictures and things. She's modeled for me before, but yeah, the picture quality wasn't as great when we first did it indoors and stuff. So stuff I'm working on, but I did put a statement out for my brand with like 3 action steps that I wanted to do, and for my customers to hold me accountable. So one was to diversify the feed, and also with the next collection, when I'm shooting pictures, that there's a more diverse modeling on the website. The second one was that I would highlight. So I started a series, Tall Girl of the Month, where I pick a diverse crowd every month, highlight one person, and kind of just speak about them as a tall person and what their experiences are. And then the third one is that I did a thing where I was planning to donate sales for a certain period of time to a Black-owned local business here in Raleigh.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Isabel. And I think this is kind of a perfect leeway into what Lisa and I were talking about yesterday. Lisa, I know that you also guide individuals and organizations on long-term consulting, but there's also e-learning workshops, and then you have just one-off diversity and inclusion guidelines consultations that, you know, given that the brands in our world are definitely frequently, because we're such a niche, they're frequently smaller. 90% of the time it is a tall sister that took it upon herself to start a brand to fill the void that we've all experienced growing up. So we're not, you know, necessarily talking about you know, the H&Ms of the world that are just massive and like billion-dollar companies and have whole armies of people that they can throw at certain things. And in the case of H&M, they're still not doing the right thing, but that's a different conversation. So considering those nuances and the smaller scope of companies and brands, can you tell us a little bit more about, you know, how and where you could be able to support the folks that are here with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote down some ideas for me to follow up on, and I shared my personal email address. And with this group, let's go with using that email address. I'm gonna, especially hearing out of this, and pretty much kind of everybody touched on it. I'm going to create some type of like small packages, like hiring practices, with some takeaway documents to share with you all in PDF format. I'm going to pare down some of the stuff we use for corporate and make it available to you as something that I know will probably be helpful. For Shireen and Tiffany, I also wanted to reach out to you because you made me think of a few things in terms of code switching and staying true to yourself and doing this work, because it's a personal thing that I found, and it makes me emotional because when I think about the amount that I used to code switch and how exhausting it was, and how I'm so much more happier now because I'm not with the bullshit and I don't have to fake it for anybody. It has truly changed the trajectory of my personal success. So I have particular information just about that. And for the startup people and people who are in new positions like Isabel, Shireen, I want to go back to something you said about like, oh, we could do whatever we want. That is actually the truth. The circle back, follow up, close the loops of the world was white people doing whatever they wanted. So you can do whatever you want. My hiring packet for my personal brand and my personal business, the first page is like, we did it. The second page is job description, do you, because that works for me. So whenever, because there's a lot of bad white male entrepreneur advice out there, almost look at it and do the opposite. So if someone is like, bye Jen, thanks. If someone is like, your decks should have paragraphs, that means it should have bullet points. So just truly, we're transforming and retraining how work is done. Set your pace, set your time, and set your price. And so Isabel, what I would say is within this new position, I empower you to frame the position how you want it to work, and see if you can get stakeholders invested in your vision for how this could work. So yeah, I'm gonna follow up with Bree if everybody doesn't hit me up individually on how I could specifically get something to this group at a rate that's like not Nova, because I think it'll be extremely helpful because you guys are showing up and you're doing the work, and it's good to see.
And Lisa, I need to really thank you for all of the time that you spend so far listening to me vent behind the scenes, but also providing some guidance on how to, you know, lead and approach these types of conversations without charging me, I have to highlight, but that needs to change. So I really would love to continue chatting with you and working with you. And I think that that will be a good topic, perhaps for the third town hall. I don't have a set date. Hi, babe. I'm almost done. I don't have a set date, but I would love to work with you behind the scenes and see how we can bring something different to the third town hall, perhaps in the form of an exercise. I know that you and I talked about what we can do at events, and since we're not doing in-person events, so we can work on that. And of course, for everyone on, we will extend the invitation again. It's, you know, it is open for you to join and make time for. And I think I've loved this dialogue that we're having, which is so different from what we normally do, because normally it is like, hey, we have this new collection. Do you want to shoot this? Or hi, I'm this friend. Or hey, I'm going to come to your brunch. And it is more transactional. And I'm really loving that we're having a real conversation that you've shown up for. So thank you all so much for joining. I'm going to do the same thing as last time. I'm going to go ahead and post this recording. And I'm going to work behind the scenes on what makes sense and what is a true value add for their town hall, and then share the date with you all. And I hope that I will see you there. So thank you all so much. And we're an hour and a half in, so I'm going to let you go. Have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, morning, depending on where you are. Mahalo, Tiffany. And I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
Brave.
day, everyone.